Hello YouTube, welcome to this video series regarding React Redux toolkit in TypeScript and Node in TypeScript. So I'm going to be making this series for you guys to know how to create a full stack application all in TypeScript and essentially using the Redux toolkit library in order to manage state in the React side. Personally, I've been having a lot of a lot of obstacles trying to learn Redux. Now, I believe that Redux Toolkit, the dev team has done an excellent work regarding the implementation, the documentation, how to set up Redux is really easy, and I want to show you guys how to do it. I think there's a lot of potential in the library, and well, if you like it, I hope you can leave that like. If you're not subscribed yet, please subscribe, and let's go to the tutorial. Okay, so we are going to start creating our folder for the project. So right now what I did is going to documents. I have a folder in YouTube, and I just created this one called Mern Football, and I probably should call it Mern Soccer because it's actually soccer, not football. So Mern Soccer. So there you go. I just renamed it, and I'm gonna go inside of that folder, which as of now it should be empty. I'm gonna open my VS Code, and that way you guys can see exactly what's going on. Alright, so obviously there's plenty of things to do right now. We're not going to be able to finish obviously in this video. I'm going to try to get as much as we can done. I'm going to try to get some of the backend done and some of the front end done, but again, it's a little bit complex. But still, at least you guys have like some sort of, idea of how to use TypeScript with Node and React, and how to also set up Redux toolkit. So what we're going to do first is create our npm project. So I'm going to do the following: npm init -y. So that's how we're going to have our node. Oh, actually, you know what? Let's remove the package.json because I want this inside of my backend folder, which I don't have it yet. So I'm going to create it. So make directory. I'm going to call this backend. Then inside of the backend folder, which by the way, now you should see this, I'm going to do npm init -y. So now we have that. Then I'm going to install Express. I'm going to install Mongoose. I think that should be, well, course. Yeah, let's install course, and then let's see if I'm missing something. I believe I am missing like JSON Web Token or something of the sort. Course Express. Okay, let's install Express Validator. Very useful. Let's install Bcrypt. Okay, I'm gonna install those so like you guys don't have any errors. Meanwhile, we install those things. But there's two more that we want to install. So we also want to install Typescript, JSON Web Token, .env, very important, and Bcrypt course, .env Express, Mongo. Okay, that should be all of it. Okay, and we will. Oh, okay. Oh, I misspelled .m. So I'm just going to install everything again, just in case. And don't worry, if you like reinstall this, even though you already pre-installed this, it's not like you're going to install multiple folders. You're just like, npm is just going to ignore the ones that you already have. So don't worry if you click npm install same packages over and over. Also, npm I. Now this stands for dependencies, meaning that you don't really need them for production, but meanwhile you develop in development, they're needed. And we're going to install tsnode and tsnode-dev. So those are the only two other packages that we're going to install, and that's it. And then the last thing that you want to do is initiate the project. So I'm going to type TSC, which stands for maybe I'm missing a flag. So let me go. Init Typescript. I believe it was TSC init, but oh, okay, npx and then with the flag. Okay, so it's npx. Actually, I do have it installed globally, but let's say that you don't have it installed, which is fine. npx tsc for TypeScript -- init. And that's it. So with this, you see the logo here, you see all these things, and that's it. We are done with the backend. Now, meanwhile I set up the backend, I also want to start installing the frontend. So I'm going to do, I'm going to back out of this. By the way, you should be seeing, I'm going to put this side by side so you can see it. Okay, so here's my backend and here's my tsconfig. Okay, so I went a directory out. I'm going to do npx create react app. I'm going to call this frontend because I like to do that, and I'm going to put template TypeScript. I believe that's the proper command, but if the command is not done properly, we can just delete the whole directory and try again. Because I'm not sure if it's templates or template, but I'm 98% sure it's template. All right, so that is going to take like a minute or so. So we can just go here and we're going to go into our config.json. So I'm actually going to do Command B or Control B to have this full view, right? So we want to do a couple of configurations there. We want to do the following. We want to make sure that we have module resolution to node. So we just do command / or control /. That's the only thing that we need to do in order to uncomment this. We also want an output directory, which should be, so I'm just going to do the search out there. There you go. So it's here, out directory. And I want this output directory to be inside of a build directory. So I'm going to put that there. Then what else? ES module interrupt true, force consistency true, strict true. I think that's about it. Yep. So that's it. That's literally it. Now, oh, okay. And this finished. So let me check. Yep. So this is properly done. If you see a TSX, it means that the command was done properly. Okay. So I'm just going to, yeah, that's good. Okay. So I'm just going to close this for now, and then I can make this big again. So again, we only need to have these things, right? Which I think we only changed 2 things. But so the build, we need to make a directory here. So I'm going to make a new directory, a new folder, and I'm going to call it build. Why is that? Because everything that we create in TypeScript is going to be compiled inside of the build. And what we're going to deploy to production is what's on the build folder. And you'll see how later on. But for now, let's focus on like the basic things. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to create a new file. I'm going to call it, oh my God, okay. I'm going to call it app.js. So new file, and I don't know why this is getting app.ts, sorry, app.ts. I'm gonna do console log testing that it works. Don't mind the typo. I just want to show you guys something. Then here, what we're going to do, we are not really going to use the test, but we can leave it there. But what I'm going to do for now, actually, build app.js. We're going to be using the def command. So what we're going to do is we're going to be using this package, ts node def. So I'm going to do ts node /dev, and we're going to run the app.ts. And that should be working. So let's just test that. We're going to go into the backend and npm run dev. So testing that it works. So we see that this is working perfect, but we should also see, why is this not compiling? Do I have to run a build? Let's see. Build tsc. Let me see. Aha, there you go. And then if we run the start, it runs the same thing, but it runs actually from our app.js. So if we want to build, we can just do npm run build, but we're gonna be running everything from TypeScript in development. So that's what we're going to be doing. Okay, so we have that. So now let's go ahead and create our server. I'm trying to think what to do, because essentially we want to create, let's create a game, a game model, game route, game controller, and okay, that should be it. And then we will display that in React, and we'll start with that. We'll go with the most basic stuff and we'll add complications to it. So let's do that. So we want to create our server, but in order to do this, by the way, and nowadays, because there's a lot of testing and I want you guys to have a good, you know, have good habits, good standards and whatnot, we're going to create, actually I'm going to go here. So I'm going to create a new file inside of my backend folder, and I'm going to call this index.ts. So essentially what we're going to do is create an index file where the index is going to be running our app file. And that is necessary if you want to test your server. We're not going to be doing testing in this tutorial series. We may do like maybe towards the end, but still this is good practice to do. So we're going to import express from express, and you see this is because we don't have the types installed. So if you do command dot or control dot, your VS Code is going to suggest to install the types. So now I just install the types. We're going to go ahead and install cores also right away because I don't want to forget about it. Same command dot or control dot, and it's going to auto install the types for you. I also want to right away configure the environment variable, so .env /config. So let's have that done right away. Also very important, I want to create my git ignore. So I'm going to create that, and I want to ignore the node modules, and I want to ignore the .env, even though we don't have it created yet. But we can go ahead and create it now. .env, right, port equals, I don't know, 8080. Right, so we have that, and we have that. Okay, and by the way, for now, which I have this open, I'm gonna go ahead and create git init. So I'm gonna create my git repository, and as you see, these two are ignored, which is perfect. I believe I had more stuff ignored. I think I had the build. Okay, we want to ignore this. We don't want to commit this because this will be in production only. Yeah, that's it. Okay, cool. So we'll commit later on. We don't need this for now. I mean, we don't need to make any commits now. All right, so we're gonna do the following. We're gonna create our app constant, which is gonna be of type application, which is gonna come from express. and we're gonna set that equal to the express function. Very similar to JavaScript. Not exactly the same, but very similar. Now, we're gonna be using this in order to use JSON parsing and stringifying, so we need that, which now it comes by default on the Express library. We don't need to use a body parser anymore. Here we'll put routes. Here we'll import. Here we will declare the route paths. Okay, and then we'll export our app. So right now we don't have anything really going on here, but let's say that we create a test route. So app dot, let's say get, we're gonna do slash, just slash, so we know that it works, request, and we need to use the type request and response. We're gonna do res.send message. It works. Request response. Okay, so we need to import both the request and let me see if I can just do request, okay, and response. There you go. Now the errors are gone. They should have been auto imported, but oh well. So now, if we execute, this is not gonna work because we're not doing anything that says for our server to listen, which is what we're going to do inside of our index file. So let's go into our index file, and I'm gonna do the following. So I'm gonna do const port, which it'll be either a string or it'll be undefined in case that there's an error. Process.env.port. For this to work, by the way, we need to import our app from the app file, and we're also going to be using mongoose from mongoose, right? Because we want to install remove import. Okay, this is saying that we're not using it, but we will very soon. So let's leave that as it is for now. And we're gonna create a function that is called start server. That way it's very clean. And we're gonna do the following. We're going to use a try catch, where we're going to try to connect mongoose.connect to our MongoDB URL. Now we don't have this, so let's go ahead and create our MongoDB URL connection, which is MongoDB localhost, and then the name of the DB, which is, I don't know, I'm going to do YT for YouTube _ soccer. So we're gonna have that. Mongoose, why is this giving me an error? Oh, there you go. So now this is saying that this could be undefined, but we're using a try catch. So if it's undefined, we'll catch it here. So we need to make sure that there is something here, whether it's undefined or not, but this variable exists. So once we have that, they should be here. We're going to do console log, connect it to DB, and I'm just going to use that's not what I wanted to put. There you go. That's the one. Oh, didn't read it. Okay, cool. And then once that is done, we're going to do app.listen. So if we are connected to our database, then go ahead and start our server, which I'm going to say server running on port, and we can use port. That was like an extra parentheses. Oh, and I'm also missing a, there you go, that's the missing parentheses. In the case that we have an error, we're gonna type the following: fail to connect to the DB. We're gonna put a cross here. There you go. And then we're gonna log the error. And that should be it. And then we can go ahead and run our server. Now, because we're running everything through here, we gotta go ahead and change our command here, because we're not running everything from the app.ts file. We're running everything from the app.index.file. And we do this in such a way because this will allow us to test our backend later on if we decide to do so. So I'm gonna go ahead here and do npm run dev. So it is connected, it is working. There seems to be no errors, so I'm gonna do localhost 8080, and we have the message, it works. Perfect. So now we're gonna go ahead and start creating our other stuff. So I'm gonna close this, close that, close that. Actually, I'll leave this open because we're going to add stuff here. But in here, I'm gonna create a new folder, which I'm gonna call routes, another folder called models, and another folder called controllers. And I know that we could create both the route here as we see and the controller. But the thing is that since we're going to be adding a lot of middlewares inside of the path, it is better, or I think it's better to separate them. That way it doesn't look as cluttered. And you'll see how this can become cluttered like really, really quick. So let's go ahead and let's create the model. So I'm going to create a new file, and it's going to be called game.ts. For this, I'm going to create an interface, and I'm going to call this game. I'm going to export this in case other models use this interface. So a game, just to make it very simple, is going to have a title of type string. It's going to have, or not title. Let's start. Okay, let's start with address. Then let's start with number of people. So we're gonna put that there. We can also add, I'm gonna add date separately from time. I know we can do this on the same type of data, but I feel it's a little bit cumbersome, so we can just separate it. If we see that there's a trade-off, or if there's an improvement by putting date time here, then I'll add it in that way. But for now, we'll do them separately. So address, number of people, date, time, and well, if it has a date and it has a time, and let's see, field number. That way, if you look a game by date, time, address, and field number, there's no way two games can be exactly the same. So this will give a uniqueness to a game, because you can have a game at the same time in the same address, right? But it won't be on the same field number. Therefore, this could be like the differentiator, you know, in addition to the ID, of course. But I think this is good enough to start. So we're gonna start adding the following. So I'm gonna call this const game schema, which this will be a new schema which we have to bring from Mongoose. So let's do import schema from Mongoose. And I've done this way too many times, so I know that we're also going to use a new model. So I could pass the interface here. It's not going to do much, but it'll help a little bit. Now here we need to just do the following. Type string. Now check how this is uppercased and this is not. This is because Mongoose requires you to use uppercase when creating this schema, so that's fine. An address, definitely required. We're also going to add number of people, type number, also definitely required, number of people. It's not a standard time schema definition. What? Oh, I put string here instead of number. So see how like it does do, the interface does check a little bit, but it's not perfect. So just so you guys are aware, but it does help. Type, we're gonna put date, which is also required, true, and field number, which is of type number, which is also required. So now that we have that done, we are going to do the following, which is const model of type game, or export default. I forgot export. Let me check on my notes. I don't want to be second guessing this. So export default model game. This is how it's going to appear in the database, but with lowercase, I believe, and the collection is going to be pluralized, I believe. Game schema, so that way what we call this in the database will be in reference to this Mongo schema that we just created. All right, so with that done, we are going to move on to the controller and routes. So in my controller, let's go ahead, create the file. So I'm gonna call this game controller.ts. Const, let's do get all games, which will have a request from express response. And see how like I'm doing this arrow down because this is the one that I want. If I press enter there, I won't get anything. So yeah, in case you want to like have those key shortcuts, we're gonna make this async also, so be aware of that. So I'm gonna say const games is equal to await games dot game dot find, because we want to find all, and then we're going to do a try and catch. If we find it, we're going to return res.json res.status 200.json games. Otherwise, return res.status 500 json error, and we'll pass the error. And export, I believe I have, yeah, we want to export that. Export const. We also want to create a create method, so create game, same thing, async request response const game to create equals await. We're gonna do the following: game.create, where we're gonna use the request.body, so whatever we pass in the body, which we're gonna be using Postman to test this. So I'm just gonna open that for later. Then, very similar to the get all games, we're gonna do the following, which is return res.status. If it's successfully created, we'll send it to a 1, and we'll send the game to create. Otherwise, return res.status 500 JSON the message. Actually, let's put SMSG. Oh, that's fine. Message couldn't create the game. Okay. So let's leave this too. Now we're gonna go ahead and create the routes. So here I'm gonna put game.ts. You can put game route. Honestly, it doesn't really matter, but I guess this is easier to visualize. Game route, sorry. So we're gonna do the following. We're gonna have to import, so import, and I'm gonna do this router from express, and I'm going to create my router variable here. And then we need to export it. Don't forget, export default router. And I believe, again, let me check my notes. Yep, that looks fine. Okay, so we're gonna do the following. We're gonna do a router.get, where we want to get API games. So whenever we type that path in the browser, we want to make sure that we can get all games where this is declared on the controller. And also we want to be able to create new games. Let's type this, let's create a game. There you go. Which again, just to recap, is just this method and this method. Okay, so now we have those two. And okay, I'm not running anything, so I'm gonna go here. By the way, I like to divide my terminal in two, which if you have Mac, which is iTerminal, you can do Command-Shift-D, and you can divide it by like so. Otherwise, you can just like create a new tab. But I like doing that because I can see like the front end running and the back end running, or vice versa. So I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna go into my backend, npm start. npm run dev, sorry. And then, by the way, you can leave this running. One quick thing before I forget. So I want to have something very similar to NodeMon. That way, whenever we make changes, we don't have to be like, you know, closing, reopening, closing, reopening. So we're gonna do this. First of all, when we do restart, we'll restart our server if we want. But also, we want to put poll, which this will pull the different changes. Also, another quick thing, we can put all of this inside of a source. I've seen this happening more and more often. That way it's cleaner. You don't see like bunch of stuff here. Like you just have two folders, the build and the source, and then obviously the node modules would stay here. The .env, the gitignore, the package, and the tsconfig would stay there, but like the app, the routes, and everything would be inside of the source folder. So let's do that quickly. And VS Code helps you do this change really easily, but we don't have that much built yet, so it's a good time to do it right now. So inside of the backend, again, I'm gonna create a source, and I'm gonna put the controllers inside of the source. Move, update imports, yes. I also want to, not the build will stay there. The models will also go inside of source, and make sure you drag it correctly. Right, so now we have these two routes also inside of source. So now I have this three. Build will stay, node modules will stay, .env will stay. These two, let's drag them inside of source. That way when we close, we don't have no files or anything related to the application. This is just like configuration, right? .env, gitignore, package.json, tsconfig, and build, and node modules. Nothing else, nothing related to the app. Everything related to the app will be inside of this, which is what we want. So again, and by the way, if you see this, actually I'm gonna close this. Let's see, game controller. Okay, that's fine. That's fine. And make sure you have the inputs properly done. VS Code, at least in Mac, does the updates for you, but if not, just make sure you have the updates properly set. And just to make sure, run your server. Oh, okay, cannot find module. So this is good. I forgot this. This goes in source. There you go. And let's try that again. And then run def. Okay, working. So we're gonna go to the browser. I'm gonna type this test. It's still working, but also I'm gonna go ahead and do API.games. I believe this should be working. Oh, of course, this is not set up in the app. So, and by the way, there's nothing wrong with that. That's because here we don't have anything declared. We don't have no routes imported or no routes declared regarding to the game. So we're gonna go here and we're gonna declare, well, first import, then declare. So I'm gonna do import game route from routes game route. Okay, cool. Then we're gonna do the following. We're gonna do app.use, not get. We're gonna use the use, and I'm gonna put API/games, and I'm gonna make use of that game route constant that I created here. And then, I'm gonna comment this out, or yeah, I can get rid of that. And by the way, check how this restarts on its own when something has been modified with the new changes that we did with the poll. So that's good. Now, if we make a request to this, we're gonna see an empty array because we don't have anything yet. Or maybe I need to change the route, game route, yeah. So because we're already using this in the app, right? So let me put this side by side. We're already using this path, so we don't need to repeat this here. Like, this is going to be appended to this. So we don't have to obviously have it like so. We can just leave it like that. Same with this. Since we already have API games here, we can just get rid of that and just leave it like that. And as you see, we don't see anything because it's just an empty array. We don't have any games. So let's go ahead and create games. And for this, we're gonna be using Postman. So this is actually for work, so let me close this. So let's create a new request, which is going to be a post, and it's going to be to HTTP localhost 8080/API/games/game. We're going to go to the body raw JSON. And this will need to have the following things. It'll need to have whatever we declared on our model, which is, and I'm gonna close everything now to declutter what we have, except for this. So we need an address, number of people. So address, whatever the address is, number of people, whatever that is, date, if I recall properly, time, if I recall properly, and then field number, which is a number, I believe. And this is giving me errors because I need to put the comments here. So actually, this works like VS Code too. But anyway, so that's the proper format. So address, number of people, date, time, phone number. Yep. Okay, address. I'm just gonna put 800 9th Street, Miami FL 3347. Yeah, whatever. I don't know if that zip code exists. People. So this is gonna be a 6v6. So the total number of people will be 12. Daytime. I'm gonna let's put 2022 of April 25th. Time, this would be at 7, so that would be 1900, and field number 3. Okay, so let's go ahead and test that. Cool, so we have that. We have the ID, we have the address, number of people. Okay, perfect. So now let's test that this is working. So I'm gonna make a request to that, and there you go. That's our first field. So let's put 3 more fields so we can have a little bit more data that we can work with. Should put name of the place. I should put name. That's what I'm. Okay, let me see if I can do this change. There may be some errors, but let's try. So I'm gonna add the string there. I'm gonna put name, type, string required true. Okay, so in that sense, this is working. Now let's see if I can add one with a name. So I'm gonna put soccer cage. Let's try this. I don't know if I'm gonna get an error because I don't know if the schema was already saved on the database, but let's try it. Okay, so cool. We could add it with a name included. Perfect. So there's soccer cage, and like the address is not correct, but this is an actual field that I play at. Which later I actually want to use real fields so you guys can see like the functionality. So Pegasus Sport, Cathedral Soccer. I know it has no religious how do you say affiliation whatsoever. It's funny though that it's called Cathedral Soccer. Maybe soccer is our religion. Okay. So it's been 40 minutes. Okay, so we have the backend, well, some of the backend done. But now if I go here, then I have, let's make this a little bit smaller. Let's put raw data preprint. So here I have an array of the first field, second, third, fourth. Okay, cool. So now we're gonna go ahead into the front end and we're gonna set up React Redux and a couple of reducers and actions in order to get this, in order to get the fields and create fields through React. So let's go ahead and do that. So I'm going to hide the terminal. I'm gonna get rid of this. And let's go to the app.tsx. So let's go ahead first and let's make sure that we can run our front end. So I'm gonna do npm start. And that was surprisingly quick. That's good. Okay, so there is our front end. Cool. So we're gonna install a couple of packages also here. We are going to be installing obviously Redux, but alongside Redux, we're going to install more. So I'm gonna open my terminal and I'm gonna switch from the backend to the front end. So I'm gonna do cd out. So now I can see my front end. I go into the front end and let's install. So first of all, we're going to install Redux.js/toolkit. I'm also going to install React Redux, React Router, DOM, Axios, and let's install those for now, so we don't have like too many installations in case we have a typo or whatever. Okay, so we have those installations done. I also want to install Material UI. So for this, I actually want to go into the Material UI web page. And here they tell you how to install it. So here we're just gonna copy that. So I just installed literally what it says here, because we're gonna be using that instead of Bootstrap. I also want to install React Toastify. What else am I missing? React Bootstrap. I don't want Bootstrap. I believe I installed Axios already. Axios. Do I have Axios? Yeah. All right, so that should be it, honestly. So let's go ahead and let's create everything that we need for our React. So first of all, I'm gonna get rid of all of this. And what I'm going to do is create a browser router component, or more than create it, import it. Put our routes here, and then create one route, which is going to have a path, and then it's going to choose a component or element. Now, React Router library or the dev team chose to put this prop as element rather than component, but it works in the same way. Yeah, There you go. So now we don't have anything. We don't have a component here. So we're gonna leave it like that. And it's fine that we have it as an error. Don't worry. But what we want to do is the following. We want to create a folder called features. And by the way, this is the way I'm going to do the folder structure is the recommended one by the React Redux team. So I know it's a little bit different to other projects that I've done or other projects that you guys have seen, but this is the recommended folder structure. So I'm just gonna follow the standards. I'm gonna create my components library in case I have like isolated components that I need or helper components. Am I using API? Yeah. I'm also gonna create a folder called API where you're gonna see how I'm going to be using this file. I'm gonna call this agent.ts. What? That should be inside of the API, sorry. So API, and then this agent.ts will go inside there. There you go. That's the way I wanted it. And then here, it's gonna give us an error too if we don't put anything. So export test equals test. It should not complain. There you go. And this is not it, but for now, so we don't get that unnecessary error, because it'll take a while till we get there. Render app. Okay, so we have that. I actually want to do also the following, where I want to put provider before I forget. I'm gonna put the app inside of the provider, and I'm gonna put store equals store, which we don't have, but that's fine. So in order to have this store and have something, first of all, let's go ahead and create a new file inside the features, and I'm gonna call this, actually before that, I'm gonna create a folder inside of the features folder, and I'm going to call this games. Now, I hate this thing, but VS Code has it because of Java. And if you guys have done Java, then you know why. If you haven't used Java, then it's not necessary to know why exactly, but essentially, I don't know. VS Code does that, so I like to put two folders so I don't get like the one folder next to the other. Anyway, in features, later we will actually have a count, but this will stay as an empty folder for now. Inside of games though, we will create a component. So field page.tsx, and I'm going to create the following: export default function, not field game page. What am I doing? Games page. So return diff to game page. Okay. So I'm going to change this to games page. That way it makes sense. Okay, and then no, I'm in the app test. Okay, so that's what we have to do, but in the index.tsx, not here. Sorry, that was my mistake. This is fine. We can leave this as it is. This is where I wanted to put the provider. So I'm gonna do the following: provider. Sorry, I didn't realize I was in the app.test tsx. Sorry. We want to put this here inside of the index.tsx. So we want that, which again, we still don't have the store, but we're going to create it just now. So we have the features. All right, let's try to clear this thing a little bit. And then inside of the source, we're going to create the store, which is where we're going to be having all our state being handled. Well, stored, more like, rather than handled, because we're going to handle everything within the features by using slices, and you'll see how. So I'm going to create a new file, and I'm going to call this store.ts. So we're going to do the following, and we don't have any reducers yet, so don't worry. again, we're gonna have just a little bit of errors, but don't worry. We'll fix that right away. So export const store equals configure store, which is gonna come from Redux JS/toolkit. So here we're going to be combining our reducers, right? And our first state is going to be coming from the game's reducer. So game reducer, which we don't have yet, but again, do not worry. And we need to create this. We're going to create we're going to create 2 types and 2 variables, but these are really, really important. So we're going to create a root state with a return type of store get state. We're going to need this in order to be able to import the state, but also the second one, we're going to need it in order to dispatch well, not messages, but dispatch methods that we need to do and change in our state. So store dispatch. So that's why we need this too. You know, one is to get state, one is to dispatch actions. And you'll see how this will work. It actually works really nicely. And also this is actually being encouraged by the dev team of Redux. So I'm also abiding by the standards that they have. So in case that you see this a little bit weird, I'm just following the documentation. Dispatch, and this is coming from changement to add dispatch. Do I have a? Okay, I had a misspelling somehow. Use app dispatch. Okay, we'll see if I have something. Selector type use selector hook root state use selector. Okay, so that one's fine. This one I have an error. Let's see, export const use app dispatch type add dispatch type of store dispatch. That looks fine. Oh, this is the one that doesn't. I don't know why, but probably the suggestion use dispatch from Redux. Okay, that's perfect. Now this is the only one that we don't have. Don't worry about this. We'll get that done right now. To get rid of this error, we can now use the GamePage. And then the error goes away, so that's done. We'll leave that as it is, so that's fine. Store, now we have a store, even though it's not fully completed, but now this is fine. So we're getting rid of errors little by little. So we leave this open. And we're gonna go into the features where we have our multiple features. We're gonna go into the games feature and we're gonna create a slice. So game slice. And this is going to be TS, not TSX. Actually, I'm not sure if I have to pluralize or not. And those little things are important. So users, user detail, user slice. I guess as long as I don't pluralize the slice, it's fine. I'll leave it like that. I think it's fine. So let's go and create our slice. So we're gonna do the following. First of all, a slice has to have an interface of the state of the slice. So we're gonna call this game state, where the, you know, just like the game, and I'm gonna open here the game model from our backend. That way we can use it as reference, right? So the game state will have a name, whether it's a string or it could be null, right? Actually, what am I doing? This slice, sorry, let's recap, because this is not going to be bringing a single game. What we're trying to do with our slice, we can either bring a single game, which we don't have that method, but we'll have it later. We can have multiple games, right, as we have here. Local host games, right? So here we have multiple games, so that's also something that we need. So for example, we can have a single game here. So single game, that could be as part of the state. We can have multiple games, right? Games, where we would have an array of game. But again, this interface doesn't exist yet, and we're not going to be using it from the backend, of course, because they shouldn't be contacting each other. So what we're going to do also, we're going to close this to leave this as clean as possible. I'm going to clean this too, because that's not doing anything. I'm actually going to leave it as so. Let's close this. Okay, so we're going to create a new folder called interfaces. And inside of our interfaces, and this is for organization. I know it's a lot of folders, but trust me, the more organized, the better. So, and this has to be game because it's single. So export interface game. Now we're going to be using as reference the backend if we want. So game, make sure we're clicking the one that it's in the backend models. So we can say, okay, it's gonna be of type string. And we can copy paste, sure, but I like typing to get that muscle memory going on. Number of people, which is a type number, date, time, string, and field number. And again, we should not use this in the backend in the front end, because we can change the front end. We can decide one day like, hey, we're gonna be using Vue now, or we can change the backend like, hey, I want to use Golang, or I want to use Java, or I want to use C#. So these won't work anymore if we change backend. So that's why we have to create a separate interface in the front end that is not communicating whatsoever in the from the backend, right? Or these two folders could be in totally separate folders. So it's just not ideal to, I know you can say like, oh, but we're hitting code. Sure, but this is in another project, completely different. Remember that even though we will be connecting these two folders, they should not be connected whatsoever because of the same reason, right? We want to be able to be as flexible as possible in case that if we want to change the backend in the future, the front end is not dependent on the backend. So just a quick note to be aware of. So now this is good because now we can use games. If we're going to have multiple games, that would be of type games array. Game array. Or it can be null, right? Because maybe there's no games, or maybe we don't want to load any games initially. So we're going to leave it like that. We can have also a loading state, right? By the way, this right here, this interface is not for the games themselves, right? We're not trying to model state for the games, or we're not trying to create an interface for the games themselves. We're trying to create an interface for the everything that involves the game. So we want to make sure that can we put a loader whenever we're talking about games, or whenever we're doing development or features for the games. We want to be able to get a single game, right? So single game, which will be of type game or no, and we want to be able to know whether a process is loading or not, which is going to be of type boolean. So that is our whole game feature state, right? It's not in regarding to the game object in itself or games, but it's in regarding to it's in regard to the games feature, not the game object or the games, the game feature. Okay, so I want you guys to have that in mind, because I remember when I started with Redux, I'm like, but how is this in relate to the games? Like, well, it's not really. This is modeling the games feature, not the game object itself. This is this is modeling the interface for the game object. So and you'll see how this will play. It's actually really easy with Redux Toolkit, which is why I wanted to do a tutorial of this. I think Redux toolkit the dev team did an amazing job, because for me it's way easier to comprehend compared to like old Redux. So now that we have an interface, we have to declare an initial state, right? So how is this going to look initially? Will we have games initially? Will they be null initially, which they will? How is this going to work, upon initiating the application? So we're going to call this initial state, which is going to have an interface of the game state. Now we're going to say that our games are going to be null initially, or not null, but it's going to be an empty array. The single game, which we don't even have the method, but that would be null for the time being. And we're going to have a loading. So we're not going to have anything loading yet, because initially we're not loading stuff. When we make an API request through React, then we will change the state. But for now, nothing is done yet. When we do the get games request, then okay, change loading to true. And then once we have all the response, it changed loading back to false. Why is that important? Because that is what is going to be controlling the spinning loaders in the React app. So that's why we have this state. But anyway, that's like the initial part. Let's we're gonna create an action, and we're gonna create a reducer. So quick note on React Redux, and I know that this is long. I know that this has been an hour, but we're trying to get something going on. So actions are processes that get data from backend, and reducers reduce to a specific state, or you can say that it manipulates state, changes state. Now, you guys have no idea. Back, like, not so long ago, those things were separated in different folders. Then you had like reducer types, you had action types, and then you had your actions, and then your reducers. That's like 4 folders already with multiple stuff that you had to set up. You're doing everything in one single file instead of 4 folders with multiple files each. So this is a lot nicer compared to old Redux, which is why I like a lot Redux toolkit. So let's start with something simple. Let's start with like the get games. So I'm gonna do export const get games equals to create async thunk. So this is in order to make async requests. That's what thunk it's used for. And I'm gonna get this is what type of information I'm expecting, which is an array of games. And then any is in case that we want to pass data, but I believe I can do this. So we're not passing any data, so therefore we don't need a second description. So this async thunk, so this method that is allowing Redux to work asynchronously, is going to expect to receive an array of games. That's it. So we're gonna say games, right? So because that's the feature that we're working on. And then we're working with specific, the getGames method, where this is going to be async, where we're just expecting games. We're not passing any data. So we're gonna do, and when we do pagination, then we may pass some data. So we may need to update this in the future. But for now, we're gonna do the following: const response equals await. I'm gonna do axios dot get HTTP localhost 8080 API /games. And that's about it. And then we're going to return response.data, and you see how the errors went away. Then we're going to do return func API dot reject with value error for now. We'll do more stuff on the backend to get this going in a smoother way. But this is our action. So with this action, we're gonna get all the games. Now we need the reducer. So what are we gonna do with the data that we just got? We need to change it and put it in the state, which is why we need our reducer created. Right? Because right now we have the data, but we're not doing anything with it. We need to manipulate it. So we're gonna call this a slice, which is a way of creating reducers. So game slice equals create slice. I'm gonna do name. The name of the slice is gonna be games because this is in relation to the games. We're going to make a reference to the initial state, which we already created. Then we're gonna create our property reducers instead of the slice. And we're gonna create a set games method where we get the state, which is all the games, and the action. Where I don't believe we need an action. I think we only need the state. Action dot payload state. No, we do need action. So, because within the action, right? So this is our action. In this action, we're gonna get some data, which sometimes it's called payload. So we're gonna set the state equals to this action data or action payload. So payload action, where what's the type of the payload or what's the type of the data? Well, it's an array of games, right? We're trying to get this right here, which is an array. If we put data, right? This is an array, and this of type games. So we're trying to get this array of games in our React application. So we have that there. Don't worry about the errors right now. I'm gonna do state.games equals action.payload. Update import state. Okay, that's fine. And then why am I having an error here? State. Looks fine to me. I don't know why state.games. Let's see, give me 1 second. Okay, so what I did, and by the way, so this is the error that I had. I did update import, that's the only thing that I was missing, and then the error went away. So that's it. So now that I have that, I'm going to do the following. I want to add, I'm not sure if I want to add extra reducers, but okay. Let's do the following. I'm trying to think. What would be the easiest thing? Alright, so I'm gonna also add extra reducers. So in the extra reducers, what I want to do is model the process of what's gonna happen, like the lifetime of getting a token, right? Because first we have like, attempt to get a token, right? I mean token, what am I talking about? I'm looking at my notes. An attempt to get games, like all the games. So first we attempt to get the games. Meanwhile, we're getting the games. We're gonna be loading, right? Because that will take time. Maybe not a lot, maybe 2 seconds. But we're getting them, we're in the process of. And then there's 2 outcomes, whether we get them successfully or we don't. But that life cycle is 3 different life cycles, so to speak. We're in process, we got them successfully, or we did not get them successfully. So that's what the extra reducers are going to be for, which is something that in old Redux people did in a little bit different way. But again, this is features that Redux toolkit allows you to set up in order to save yourself a lot of boilerplate. And this is really, really nice. You guys have no idea. If you haven't seen normal Redux, this is so much nicer. So we're gonna do the following. I just don't like that loaded file initial state token state. Yeah. Alright, yeah, let's do the following. So I'm just debating on how to like model this, or we can add just in cases if not, but so we're gonna do the following: builder, add case. So we're gonna just be getting the tokens. So get tokens. I mean get games. Jesus. So if we have the get games, the state is not, well, yeah, we're changing state. So state and fulfilled, colored, argument, supply, prototype type. All right, so I think it's pending. There you go. That's the one that I was looking for. So we're gonna have state and we're gonna have action. I believe we don't even need action because we're not getting it, and we're not getting anything from this yet if it's pending, right? We will only get something whether this is fulfilled or rejected. But for now, if the process is pending, we're not getting anything from this action. We're not getting the arrays. We're pending. So let me check something quickly. Pending. Yeah, we only need state. So I don't even need this underscore. So what are we going to do with that? We want to change in this state, right? Which is our games and not games, loading. We want to set this loading to true, right? So again, this is our state and we only want to change the loading. So initially it's false, right? Because if we don't call anything, there's nothing loading. But whenever we hit this, whenever we hit this method or action, get games, then we say, okay, if it's pending, put this loading to true. Then, if the get games method was successfully called, so we're gonna put, I think it's fulfilled, yeah, fulfilled, where we're gonna have state and action payload, hence the action. Then if it's fulfilled, then we're gonna say like, okay, change the games equals to the action.payload, but also change the loading equal to false because the process is done. And same with games, get games rejected. If the action was not successful, kind of like a promise, right? We're just gonna say, okay, change the state loading equals to false, and we don't have to do anything to the games because we didn't get any. Probably if we have errors, which actually I can add it to the state, so I'm gonna put here errors. I have no idea what type of errors will be yet. Later we're actually going to do something to make the errors appear as something that we predefine, but for now I'm just gonna put it as an empty array, like, damn. Yeah, I'm not sure what can it appear as, so I'm just gonna put it as null actually. And then here I can put state dot errors equals to action dot payload, right? Why is this so? Because here we say if we have an error, then return the error, which this could be, I'm not sure what it can be yet, but we're gonna leave it like that. So we're done with the slice. This is all that we can do now with this. Actually, we can also add the create, but this is already an hour and actually, you know what? Let's do the create. So const create game equals create async game. Now we're going to be passing data, which is going to be of type object. We're going to be passing, this will be in the feature games, but the method would be create game. And then of course this is asynchronous, where here we'll pass the data. And if anything, if needed, we'll use the Thunk API, which is just a reference from Thunk in order to do dispatching methods. So now we're going to do const response equals access.post http localhost 8080 API games game, and we're going to be passing the data here. Then we'll just return response.data. Why am I getting an error? Response data. Does not exist on. Okay, so it's telling me that probably this is not. I believe that maybe this was the other way around. I always forget. Let me check quickly in my notes. Create token, create token object. Yeah, Thunk API. Responsive data. That's what I was missing. And yeah, so this is in reference to the data. So we're saying we're expecting to pass this type of data in this create game method, and we're expecting to get this type of data, which is the game, which would be the responsive data. That's essentially what this is saying. And we'll do the call to the API, and then we'll get a response.data. Otherwise, we just dispatch a message that we got an error, and that's it. So now we have that, and we also want to create the. So that's the thing. If we are creating this, we could change the state. Create token, dispatch. We could either set token here. No, actually, maybe this is not the correct way, but I'm gonna do it regardless right now. Where I'm just going to do Thunk API dot dispatch, and I'm going to do get games. So this will just get all the games, and it'll retrieve them from the database. It's not ideal. What we should ideally do is just add it on the front end, and that should stay, and later on when we do a call we'll get it. But right now, since I'm running out of time, I don't have time to check this, but for now let's leave it like that because I know that this will work. So now we have all this. I know I spent a lot here in the slides, but hopefully you guys have a lot of clarity of how the slices work. I know we're still missing to put them in the store, but we're going to do that now. So we're going to do get set games, which equals to game slice dot reduce. Dot actions. What am I doing? So I know that this is weird because I know I said that actions were one thing and reducers were other things. So I know it's weird. I'm actually making reference to set games here, set games, and you know, these are the reducers, and these are my actions. And you see, but you're saying that this equals to game slice.actions set games. I know it's a really weird way to you know, reason about, but let's see if let's see the Redux toolkit, Redux toolkit export actions from slice, just so you guys can see. So, and you see how like reducers, increment, this is coming from here. So I'm abiding completely by the documentation, okay? So don't at me, this is from Redux toolkit. So I'm doing exactly the same as Redux toolkit, okay? But again, this is obviously a reducer because it's coming from here, but you're like destructuring it from the game slice actions. I know it's a weird thing to reason about, but let's leave it as it is, and let's you know, let's all agree that these are actions, because these are the actions that get the data, and these are the reducers that reduce or change the state or modify the state. So now we can go into the store, and then this game reducer, now we can import it. So import game reducer from features / games / game slice. And some people like to leave it as slice, but I like to leave it as reducer. It's essentially the same. So I want to display at least the games, and we're not gonna have time to make the creation because this is an hour and 20 minutes long already. But at least you have like a good setup of how Redux toolkit and noding type oh god, noding TypeScript works. Oh wow. Okay, so I'm gonna collapse all of this so it's a little bit cleaner. Let's go here, and what I'm going to do is the following. I want this that upon initiation it calls the get games function. Now this needs a couple of things before it works 100%. Okay, so I did the following. Okay, so first of all, because this will be an asynchronous, you know, the get games is asynchronous, right? Because we don't know how much it will take. We want two things. We want to create a function called init application or init app, which we're going to use a callback hook from React, right? Which will be of type async. Function app equals let's actually make it a use callback async. Okay, so we're gonna use await dispatch, which also this dispatch we don't have it yet, and that's why we created those things in the store. We're going to be using this use app dispatch, which will help us dispatch actions and methods. So I'm going to say dispatch set equal to use app dispatch. So await dispatch, and then we're going to do get games. And I'm getting an error, I don't know. Oh, this will be dependent on the dispatch constant, meaning fire this whenever we dispatch the message, right? Because this hook will work only dependent on this change of state. So now what we can do is that upon initiation of this application, we want to initialize the application, which will get the games. What else am I missing here? I think that's it. So now we have all this set up. So now we can go into our games page, and then I'm gonna do the following. I'm gonna do const, and I'm gonna get the games, which will be coming from, and again, now this is why we use the use app selector, because that's where we get our global state from. Use app selector, but this is a little bit different. We're gonna do state, where we want to pass the state.games. And from here we can use loading and whatnot, but we're gonna see later on how to put different state, like account state or player state and whatnot. And we cannot get all of it from here. We would have to use multiple app selectors, where this would come from, I don't know, accounts, and then the other one would come from players, but don't worry about this for now. So now we have the game. So, you know, as normal, we would do a UL, and then we would do if the games are not null, then we can do games.map. We're gonna map a single game, where we're gonna pass an li, and this will have a key of game._id. ID does not exist on type game. Ooh, okay. By the way, to make this error go away, we're gonna go into our interfaces, and we're gonna put this _ID. And we're not always going to be using ID, so that's why we're gonna use the question mark. So now the error went away, and then we can do, let's say, an h4 game dot, and let's say the name of the game, like where the field is. And this is not displaying. Let's test this. Okay, let's see any errors. Okay, so we do have a lot of errors. Non-serialized what detected, payload, HTTP, Redux, cross origin. Oh, okay. So probably I don't have the core set up. That's something that I actually mentioned to have it, but yep, I don't have it. App use cores. So this is in the app.ts in the backend, and let's put here middlewares. And let's restart our backend with rs. Okay. Hey, there you go. Now, remember this dot, it does not have a game because this one does not have a game, but I can put addresses instead of names. So let's go here, and I'm gonna put dot address. Alright, so lastly, I want to make this a little bit nicer, because, you know, I know that visually good-looking web apps make a lot of difference. So let's add a navbar, and let's add cards to this, and we'll be done with the tutorial. And I'll try to be as quick as possible. So I'm gonna go to Material UI, and I'm gonna go for the app bar. There was an app bar in particular that I liked. Actually, I'm gonna use my notes instead. Navbar. Okay, that's a lot. So let's use, yeah. In my notes I have 200 lines for a navbar. So let's use something simple. And again, this isn't either like as simple as it can be, but all right, let's use this navbar, I guess. So I'm gonna go into my components, new file, navbar.tsx, and what the hell? Why was this not? Copy code. Okay. So we have our navbar, and this gives me an error because I don't have that installed. npmi mue icon slash material. Let's see if the error goes away with that. I think that's it. There you go. Yeah, that was it. And then the other error, responsive export default. Nah, this is going to be navbar. Okay, so that's it. I know it's a lot of code. I know. We'll clean this up. But for now, what we can do is go into our where's our app.tx? Here, and here I can just put the navbar, and you can call it whatever you want. I just like calling it that in order to avoid naming issues. What? I thought I had it imported. Maybe I have to restart the server. And let me see if I have to install something else. Install icons. I mean, I already did, so. Yeah, it was just a restart. So what does this do? As you see, whenever you make this smaller, you have that, you have this, and then you have that, which looks really nice, but right now this is not useful. We'll make this useful in a bit. For now, at least we have something going. So now let's go ahead and fix this too, because this doesn't look as nice. And also I want to make, I want to change a couple of things here. Where's my app bar? So instead of doing style, like so, you can do the same where you do style, like so. I'm gonna do background image, linear gradient. I'm gonna put 90 degrees, and I'm gonna put blue, and then I'm gonna put blue, or actually green. Okay, that doesn't do anything. Okay, let's try one more thing, and then if not, I'll give that a rest. Navbar. Background image, linear gradient, 90 degrees, and I'm gonna choose blue and blue. I'm gonna choose different blues, so I'm gonna choose like, I don't know, something like this, and then this one I'm gonna go like for a green. I don't know. Then let's use this class in the navbar. Class name is equal to navbar. Hey, there you go. There we have our gradient, and we can change this if we want. So, and this did not work at all. We can use it for other things, but for that, as we have it, is fine. I don't know. I think it looks decent. It's not like the best, how do you say, design that I've done, but it looks okay, I guess. So let's close everything, and then the last thing that I'm gonna do here is the following. I'm gonna change this to grid, because that's what it comes from Material UI container. So let's bring this from Material is not working. I want it to. I want to add like some sort of margin. So, okay, 133. We're still kind of within the okay limit, I guess. UI. Go here. Container. Oh, okay, so it's container, not grid. Okay. Container. We're still gonna use a grid, so that's fine. Then we can get rid of this. All right, perfect. I'm gonna close this one. So now you see that this is not, you know, all the way to the left. So it has a little bit more margin, which is, it's fine. It's not perfect, but you know. So now I want to change this. Also, I want to add a card for this instead of the LIs. So I'm gonna get rid of that. I'm gonna create a grid where this grid is going to have I'm not sure. Let's leave that as so. Let's put that there, and I'll explain what I'm doing. Grid, by the way, it's kind of like the columns and rows of Bootstrap. They work a little bit different, but they're somewhat similar. So I want to use this card right here, but we don't have an image. So I guess this is the cleanest, where we can put something like that. So copy the source code. I actually want to see the source code. This is too much shit. Too much stuff, sorry. Actually, you know what? Let's see what changes with this. Okay, that nothing was done there. Container. There you go. So now we have the 4. So I'm actually gonna do a little bit of styling here myself, like so, with the SX. So remember, like style of anything, like style whatever. Then I'm gonna do background image, and let's see if this works, because last time it didn't work. Linear gradient, 90 degrees, green, and then I'm gonna put blue. Oh, okay, so now it did work. Okay, interesting. Which is not the color that I want, by the way. But so now I want this in every single grid, not in there. And I'm missing this. That's why it's giving me an error. Okay. So I'm actually gonna put this that way I can put a lot of styling here. Okay, so not really thrilled of how it looks, but let's add some spacing. Okay, that didn't do anything. Again, didn't do anything. What was I doing? GamePage, homepage, grid. Where I was using the grid? Give me 1 second, guys, and we'll be done soon. Am I missing the item property here? Nope. Grid container. Okay, I don't like how it looks. Especially that thing going. Okay. Let's see if I can give this a little bit of margin. So let's say margin 10. Margin 10, height 50, width 50. Okay, whatever, that's man. Okay. I'm trying to make this look decent, but I'm struggling here. Border radius. Okay. So it's just I have a problem with the fact that if I want 3 elements per row, right, which is the same as column 4 in Bootstrap, I'm only having 2 elements, which is not something that I was looking for. Also, where's the app CSS.css? I'm gonna copy this RGB for now. We'll make it a little bit more useful right now. I know that there's not really value to like doing this and there's just styling, but you know, I like good styling. Okay, we're ish, kind of getting there. We can add cards, but yeah, later on we can do that. You know, we can add one more, which will be, let's say, soccer cage rooftop. Send. So now we should have, okay. So if we change this to names, actually I'm going to change this to names. Name else no name. Okay, so we have that. Again, I need to work on the styling, but I'm gonna stop here. That way at least you have like something to look for. It looks a little bit nicer. We have this, you know, getting pulled from the backend. React and Redux is working. I'm gonna leave it here. Obviously I'm gonna make it nicer and make it more useful, where we'll have like a create form. I'm gonna add authentication. I'm gonna add like validation in the front and in the back. Obviously login, sign up and whatnot, but at least I wanted you guys to have something that looks decently well and that it's set up with Redux, it's set up with Node and Typescript, and you guys can, like, if you want, to take from here. So if you like this video, please like, share and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next tutorial.